And then, of course, the precious ex-votos that you will see here from Byblos, discovered in temples and sanctuaries. From the first millennium, the sarcophagus of King Ahiram, dated to the 10th century BC, one of the National Museum masterpiece. On its cover, you have here the inscription. For the first time in history, we have the most complete Phoenician inscription using 19 of the 22 Phoenician letters. And for the first time, so we have the witness of the Phoenician alphabet. Another example also that shows maybe the presence of Cyprus during the 6th century and even earlier, but this is a major example to discover the link between Cyprus and Lebanon. The outstanding collection of marble statuettes that were discovered in the temple of Eshmun next to Sidon. These are ex-votos dedicated to the Phoenician god of healing. Between the 2nd century AD, BC and AD, we have the Roman culture that left traces. Statues, sarcophagi, mosaics illustrate this period. It's soon followed by the Byzantine period, like this mosaic from Shihim, and the Islamic period with the Islamic conquest starting in the 7th century with several dynasties that brought different new art languages that are represented in ceramic, jewelry, stone, calligraphy, etc. In short, one can say that many civilizations have successfully left their impact on the territory along the Mediterranean Sea, a land known in antiquity as Canaan, Phoenicia, and much later Lebanon. The whole history of the country is therefore told inside this museum. But there is a special story in the National Museum, and this brings me to my second point. It concerns recent history, when the civil war that devastated for many years Lebanon started. In fact, the National Museum was badly damaged, as you can see on the picture, and suffered during these bad, sad years between 1975 and 1991. It was badly damaged and it was occupied by various military factions. Not because of for looting or because people were interested in the statues or whatever, not at all. It was occupied because people were interested in its strategic location that was exactly on the green line that was dividing two parts of Beirut, east and west. So these factions were sitting, staying, sleeping, living inside the museum, and because the museum was like a bunker, and they could take profit of this. It's therefore the story of revival and a rebirth after the civil war that heavily destroyed the building, actually, as you saw, and the showcases. Now, we had the courageous initiative of the then director of antiquities, Maurice Shehab, who very quickly, at the beginning of the war, decided to remove all the small objects that were on display in the first floor and on the showcases, inside the showcases. And he put them in boxes, then he hid them in the basement floor. The big objects, like the big sarcophagus that you see here, or the statues, of course, it was very difficult to move them. So he decided to keep them as is, at their place, and to cover with blocks of concrete every and each big objects that he couldn't move. And this was a fantastic operation that started in 1996 after the war, when we started dismantling the cement blocks, and then when we started recovering the whole collection. Another example is the mosaic of the Good Shepherd. The mosaic of the Good Shepherd represents a young man in the middle with a sheep, and so he's surrounded by animals. Of course, it was discovered in Jnah, south of Beirut, in the 60s, and dates back to the 5th, 6th century. This image, commonly used in the pagan iconography, is the symbolic representation of Christ. The mosaic, of particularly harmonious design, is of an exceptional quality. However, you can see the wide opening hole here in the lower side of the mosaic, that is the work of a sniper who was hidden inside the National Museum, and precisely behind the wall of where the mosaic was displayed. From this spot, he was shooting at people trying to cross this strategic green line. So the sniper was behind this mosaic of a Good Shepherd. And of course, we have done some work of restoration, but we have decided to keep this hole as an example of, as a testimony also, of the whole, the own history of the mosaic, but also the history of Lebanon. In the basement, the conditions were different. The preservation strategy also was different. The objects that were removed from the first floor and the second floor were placed in storerooms in the basement. And the basement was walled, completely walled. So the director kept on saying that all the objects and the valuable objects had been placed in a safe place, so nobody could ever tell that they were just behind our feet in the basement floor. And unfortunately, the storeroom environment was different. High humidity, groundwater intrusion that flooded the storerooms that were closed for more than 15 years. Some objects were in very poor condition and suffered from humidity and oxidation. Here we have some examples of pottery, but also we have here example of glassware. There again, it took huge efforts, long years of work to establish the collection catalog, clean the objects, and document them. Another example is the tomb, a tomb of Tyre. This is a richly decorated tomb that was discovered in Tyre in 1937. And the exceptional frescoes that covered the four walls were dismantled from their original place in Tyre in 1939 and reassembled, restored in the basement of the National Museum. And then again, during the Civil War, and because the museum was closed for so long, several factors contributed to the degradation of the wall paintings of the Tomb of Tyre, such as the upwelling of water, high level of humidity, and the inadequate environmental conditions. Here we had the contribution and the help of the Italian government, with whom we started the restoration in 2010-2011, and for a year, a complete year, a team of Italian and Lebanese restorers worked inside this tomb. As I was saying, exceptional painting quality. Furthermore, an appropriate conservation program was designed to ensure their long-term protection as well as their presentation to the public. And it's following this successful cooperation that the Embassy of Italy decided to continue its collaboration. And within 18 months, we were able to open the basement again. So between 2014 and 2016, we worked on this basement that is dedicated to funerary art through the ages. All the artifacts on display were discovered within funerary contexts, and therefore the rituals, the customs, the creed used at the past are here on exhibit. And this brings me to my third point. What was the best way to present this new ale that started in 2014 and was inaugurated on October 2016? With new artifacts and modern scenography, what were the new challenges and how new technologies could help us through digital production, for instance? So to explain the chronological path and to provide information concerning burials, rituals, we have decided to give more importance to the visuals through documentaries, animation film, PowerPoint presentation, and even a smartphone application that I will present now. So to explain, let's say, I will take 4 examples of how we decided to explain these difficult issues that are about death and burials. The first one is an example of the Phoenician cemetery of Tyre that is excavated by the University of Barcelona. And this is one example of a double urn tomb. This is the excavation in Tyre el-Bas. And to give the best explanation about this presentation, we decided to put a 3D animation film just next to it, where you can see very easily how the excavation was conducted, what were the discoveries about, and even there's a small ritual that is explaining the incineration process. So through this visual, it was easier, I would say, to explain the artifacts and to explain the showcase. Another spectacular presentation are these anthropoid collection, these very particular type of sarcophagus that are mainly discovered in Sidon, dated between the 6th and the 4th century BC. They are all in marble. The marble is from Paros. And this collection that was called the fourth collection in the past, was added. Today we have 31 sarcophagi on display. And here also it was the idea of the scenographer, the architect, the Italian architect, Antonio Giammarusti, who decided to install angles mirror, so that the reflection of the whole series is as reflected to the end and to infinity, and more specifically in the ceiling. So the explanation here, we wanted it to be very sober, that in order not to interfere in the scenography and in the impressiveness of the series. Mummies. Exhibiting mummies in the National Museum was not an easy task. This is for the first time that the National Museum is showing mummies. We do not have in Lebanon the tradition of mummification. So these human remains were discovered in a cave in the Kadisha Valley, so north of Lebanon, and they were discovered by speleologists. Very difficult condition of access of the cave and the grotto. And when we were in presence of these 8 naturally mummified bodies, we decided to put on display 3 of them with all the artifacts that were discovered. So we have, of course, the textile, but we have also objects from the everyday life, spoons, combs, even we have some lentils, some onion peel, some grapes. So we have decided to show everything and to put on display this presentation, although it was done with a lot of respect to ethical consideration, because as I was saying, this was the first time that we decided to present mummy in the National Museum. So this is the presentation that shows more the difficulty of the excavation, and that shows also how people used to live in the 13th century in Mount Lebanon. The last example I'm showing in this new basement museography is a collection of Roman period chippies, inscribed stone funerary steles. We had 26, and instead of having caption next to each and every one, especially that all our captions and all the explanation that we give usually in the National Museum is done in 3 languages, so we decided to put this screen next to it, and we have the chippy itself with the inscription in Greek, and then the 3 translation next to it. So it's all the time passing continuously to explain this presentation, this showcase. And it permitted us to preserve the aesthetic of the presentation as if it was a piece of art itself. So in conclusion, we can say that the introduction of these new kind of presentation gave new perspectives by providing solutions at different levels, while, of course, with all the respect to the scientific information and to the aesthetic integrity of the museology. I will present you finally the smartphone application that we decided to do a few years ago, 2 years ago. And for the first time here, we have a smartphone application that is also an audio guide. It's a very simple presentation of the history of the museum, the collection, the plan, and the photo gallery. And then on the left side down, you can see you have the audio guide. So if you have the downloaded already the application on your own smartphone, you can listen to the explanation on your own while having the tour in the museum. So this is how it looks. I mean, you can download it. It's Beirut National Museum. It's free of charge. And you can have it as an app. The first part, so it's the collection. You can have the collection through chronology, or through object types, or through the location in the museum, if it's the base, the ground floor, first floor, or the underground. And then you have this barcode that you have to approach from each of the barcode to present 150 different objects were chosen within the 3 floors of the museum, and then you listen to the explanation. And if you don't have the smartphone on your own, the application on your own phone, then we provide you free of charge with an iPad that you can have for the tour. So this application is a premiere in the Middle Eastern Museum. It's a free of charge and can be easily downloaded. It gave practical information also, like visiting hours, activities. It brings details on each of the masterpieces, and especially I must say it attracted a young public that is definitely searching for new incentive and motivation in the museum today. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. We will be now moving to the next presenter. We are delighted to have with us Professor Nektarios Stavranakis, Chairman, Board of Directors from the Foundation for Research and Technology, Hellas Fourth, who is actually a very valued member of our consortium, and we hope to be seeing people from Fourth even more down the road.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be here and introduce the Foundation for Research and Technology and its activities that relate to cultural heritage. Unfortunately, Apostolos Saris, who is the actual partner of Fourth within Medstach Consortium, was not able to be here, so you will have to endure me instead. So I will briefly introduce the Foundation for Research and Technology, which is actually a research center, a public research center in Greece. And it actually focuses on 3 main directions. The first is the targeted scientific research in selected areas, of course, of added value for the country and the region. The second pillar of our activities is, of course, the training and education of young scientists. We aspire to facilitate the development of the next generation of Greek researchers and scientists. We are trying to do this, of course, by facilitating and maintaining close ties with universities throughout Greece, in Crete in particular, but not only, the University of Athens, Thessaloniki, and other universities throughout Greece. And the last part of our activities is, of course, the exploitation of the scientific outcome. How we can translate knowledge and research and findings that have been generated in research labs in Fourth institutes to products and services to the benefit of the society and the economy, of course, especially now that we are going through these trying times of economic crisis. And we are trying to pursue all these targets with an emphasis on excellence. That's the overriding criterion of our activities. So FORTH was established 34 years back, in the beginning of the 1980s. 35 years ago, we started our activities with just 3 institutes, but ever since its establishment, FORTH has grown. Now it includes 7 research institutes. Most of them are located in Heraklion, in the capital of Crete, where the headquarters of FORTH are located. But there is also the Institute of Mediterranean Studies in Rethymnon, which is the actual partner in Medstach. There is the Institute of Chemical Technologies and Engineering in Patras, and there is also another Institute of Biomedical Sciences in Ioannina. In addition, FORTH has established a high-quality publishing house, Crete University Press. It has also been instrumental in establishing and operating a state-of-the-art observatory, the Skinakas Observatory in Rethymnon, in one of the highest mountains of Crete and Greece. It has established a Science and Technology Park of Crete in Heraklion, which is an incubator for startups and companies that have to be close to research labs in order to facilitate interactions. And finally, we have also created a technology transfer office called the Praxi Network, which is located, its headquarters are located in Athens. It's a facilitator of transferring data and findings generated within FORTH institutes to the economy, to the industry, and also facilitates interactions between researchers and the industry. It has a presence throughout Greece, in Heraklion, in Patras, in Volos, in Thessaloniki, and elsewhere. So FORTH is truly a peripheral research institution of Greece. It's actually the largest research institution of Greece as it stands now, in terms both of size, number of personnel, but also economic data. As you can see, it has presence throughout Greece, in Heraklion, where its headquarters are located. 5 out of the 7 institutes are there. There's also the Institute of Mediterranean Studies in Rethymnon, the Institute of Chemical Engineering Sciences in Patras, the Department of Biomedical Sciences in Ioannina. Crete University Press has presence in Heraklion, in Athens. The Praxi Network has presence throughout Greece. So it forms a network that encompasses almost the entirety of the country, which also facilitates interactions with other research institutions and universities. Now, as I said, the overriding criterion of our activities is the pursuit of excellence. This is actually important, essential even, in cases where we go through economic crisis, because under those circumstances, it's really excellence that keeps you afloat and maintains competitiveness. So we've managed to achieve this throughout the years. FORTH these days ranks first among all research institutions of Greece. This has been exemplified by its evaluation. The last 15 years, it's always at the top of all evaluated research institutions in Greece. It also ranks first among all Greek institutions by the European Commission in terms of its competitiveness in attracting European funds. Nature Index has also ranked it first among all Greek research institutions. And in addition to maintaining competitiveness, of course, we want to also maintain an environment that is conducive to research and innovation. Towards that end, we are maintaining a number of facilities, state-of-the-art facilities in various areas of research. So, for example, FORTH is maintaining a European research facility in lasers. It's a point of reference for laser research, and it actually has applications in cultural heritage. I'm going to show you some examples later on. It also maintains facilities that are relevant to cultural heritage, and I will give you some examples again in a minute. but also in other areas of research, for example, biomedical research, genomics research, etc. Researchers working at the Foundation of Research and Technology, of course, are the backbone of this success, and they have been really productive and successful in attracting highly competitive funds. So they've achieved being awarded 27 ERC grants. This is more than twice than half of all the grants that ERC has provided to Greek researchers. And they have also achieved other prizes, such as, for example, Marie Curie Excellence Awards and other distinctions. Now, I will, besides this general introduction, I will now move more specifically to our activities that have to do with cultural heritage. Because although Forth is primarily a technological institution, we also place central emphasis, I would say, strong emphasis on cultural heritage, being in Greece, in a country with a rich history and heritage. And we have, towards that end, established the Institute of Mediterranean Studies, which, as you can see here, has activities that are related, for example, to theater studies, ethnomusicology, art history, linguistics, language, literature, historical studies that have to do with the wider Mediterranean area, but also has established, and this is actually unique for Greece, a laboratory for geophysical, satellite, and remote sensing laboratory, which is headed by Professor Apostolos Saris. And this laboratory is actually a proud partner of Medstach, and they have been active throughout Greece, the whole country, but not only. They are also active in other areas of the Mediterranean, and they have been fostering collaborations with almost every country around the Mediterranean area. So this is a state-of-the-art laboratory equipped with the latest technology for geophysical surveying and satellite and remote sensing. Now, in addition to the Institute of Mediterranean Studies, the other institutes of Forth, namely, I will give you two examples. The first is the Institute of Electronic Structure and Laser, have established technologies that are actually applied to cultural heritage. As one such example, I will give you the application of laser beams, laser light, in the service of cleaning marbles, cleaning antiquities. This system has already been applied to the cleaning of the Caryatids in the Acropolis Museum, and it has been very successful, so much so actually that it has been adopted recently by the Chinese government, and similar systems have been set up and are now functioning in the Forbidden City in Beijing, where they are used to clean antiquities. And a lot of research has actually gone into this technology because it requires the technology to be able to clean thoroughly, but at the same time also maintain the patina, the essential elements of the antiquity. And it is very, very important to take into account the specifics of the deposits, so the chemical composition of what's been deposited in the antiquities, as well as other factors that have been that need to be tailored in order to do this effectively without harming the antiquities, which are of course priceless. So we are now actually establishing such systems in other countries as well through collaborations. And in each case, we had to customize the system to fit the specific needs. So in addition to this part, of course, as I said already, Forth has established a high-quality publishing house that is also facilitating cultural heritage research because of its support to editions that have to do with the history of Greece, the cultural heritage of Greece. And we are maintaining this publishing house as a high quality public publishing house. It has actually become a very economically sustainable activity because it is now able to maintain itself without any public support. And it has been embraced by the totality of the Greek scientific community as a very high quality and non-compromising publishing house. Now, the last example I want to give comes from the Institute of Molecular Biology and Biotechnology. Actually, it's the institute where I'm also a researcher. And it has to do with the use of genomics, of cutting-edge modern genomics technologies in the service of cultural heritage studies and research. And more specifically, the use of the analysis of ancient DNA, which has become a cutting-edge tool that opens a new window to our past history. And it's actually a multidisciplinary endeavor because it combines not only, of course, biological research, biological tools, biotechnology and biomedical tools, but it also combines computational science, it combines physics, chemistry, in order to analyze DNA that's been recovered from samples and specimens from excavations throughout Greece, but also in the wider region. So Forth has actually been able to establish the first ancient DNA analysis laboratory in Greece. It's a state-of-the-art laboratory that complies with the strictest specifications for the analysis of DNA, which are already extremely demanding, as you can understand, in order to avoid contamination with modern DNA. Certain procedures and certain safeguards need to be in place. And we are actually very proud to report here that we have already obtained quite interesting and encouraging results. So we have been able to actually already analyze ancient DNA coming from excavations. In this case, we are focusing mostly on the Hellenistic era and the Ambrakia necropolis, where we have been able to successfully obtain ancient DNA from specific biological samples and analyze this DNA. Using this analysis, of course, now we can come up with new information. So ancient DNA, for example, can be used in studies to elucidate the origin of human populations, the migration patterns, the identity, the structure, and the relationships throughout history. We can actually follow the relationships of populations and nations throughout history by using the analysis of ancient DNA. In addition to that, we can also get a glimpse of the actual people. We can read the DNA and get information about the phenotype of the people. So we can even determine their eye color, their hair color. We have a case, for example, that we've analyzed from the excavations I showed you earlier, where we've determined that the subject was a blonde female with blue eyes. So we can obtain such information and we can explore relationships relative to one specimen with the other. So we can determine, for example, even paternity, we can determine close family relationships just by analyzing DNA recovered from tombs. We can even get a glimpse on the health conditions, because we can now do metagenomic analysis and identify DNA coming from microbes that perhaps were responsible for the deaths of people or were inhabiting environments where people lived. We can even get an idea about biodiversity, about agricultural habits by just reading DNA and identifying organisms that cohabited the areas where people lived in ancient times. And I will close by just giving you a list of perspectives, things that can be done by using these technologies. And of course, we are now aiming to pursue all these targets. We also plan to develop further into archaeogenetics, bioarchaeology, and generally use biotechnology tools in the service of cultural heritage research. We also plan to integrate, in addition to genome analysis, now also proteomics, protein analysis, which again provides additional information. And we are doing this, of course, through collaborations, through close collaborations. As I said, we are a very proud partner of Medstach, and we hope really that this will allow us to go into the future, keep collaborating on these questions and the technology that has been developed. And we're really looking forward to any further developments and contributing to the Medstach cause further. And I will close by thanking you, and I would be happy, if you have any questions, I would be happy to address them.
Thank you very much. Just maybe a question for the sake of Forth. Sorry. How many people, Professor Tavernakis, how many people are employed in Forth? Just to give us a perspective of the size of the unit.
At the moment, we're approaching 2,000 researchers. Okay. So we had to go through a valley of death. So we declined during the height of the crisis. But now, due to all these new research programs and funding that was received, we've now grown back more than actually we were before. And we are approaching about 2,000 people.
Okay, thank you. So, next presentation, we're very happy to have with us from Greece, Mr. George Giallas, Secretary General for Tourism and Policy Development from the Ministry of Tourism. And thank you for being with us and taking your time from your busy schedule, taking a trip to Cyprus. And of course, I discovered then they had previous connections
with Cyprus, yes. Mm-hmm. This is oops. Good morning, also. Yes, indeed. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure for me being here. It's also a pleasure because during my professional years, for some time ago, I've been working with the government, Cyprus government, with for EU programs and the technical assistance programs from the EU. So I know also the COT. The tourism organization and also the Ministry of Labor, the Ministry of Economy, and all those people. It's a pleasure now for me being here again. And since last night, I hope that I will be more frequently here because I understand that soon you will be having a separate ministry with a vice minister in tourism, which is very. It is an idea that, of course, will. Add to your tourism initiatives here, and we link culture and tourism and agriculture and the primary sector, and all these links, create all these links, and we will be happy in Greece to cooperate with the new coming ministry in your country, as well as with all the institutions that are involved. Let me just give you an idea, which is quite not very scientific actually, and it's not that very much interesting in terms of scientific approach, because all these presentations that we had before, I was impressed, really impressed, and we understand, all of us, of course, that how much important is culture and how much important is antiquities and how much important is history for tourism. And when we say culture for us in the Ministry of Tourism and in tourism, it's not only culture in terms of antiquities or in terms of ancient findings, or culture is everywhere. Culture is in people, is in history, it's in gastronomy, it's the local people, it's the local economies, it's handicraft, it's arts and crafts, it's everything, it's all around us. And it's, of course, it's directly connected to the development and the prosperity of the tourism sector. What we did actually, the last 3 years with this government, I'm serving this government for the last 3 years. I come from the private sector as a management consultant in Greece, here in Cyprus for some time, and abroad, in Europe and other countries. So what we tried to do in the last 3 years with this government, with under the Minister, Mrs. Elena Kountoura, what we try to do is that to enhance, to develop more, and to get Greece everywhere around the world. And this, we have done it with great success, because what we did is from 2014 until now, we had every year 2 more million tourists in Greece, which is actually an annual growth almost 9%, double the average percentage of the global tourism increase all over the world. And the spending, you can see, and investments in tourism in Greece, it's an amount that we could never think of the years before and the years during the crisis. Although during the crisis, tourism was the sector that supported the Greek economy, and it was the sector, it's an economy itself, I could, if you allow me to say, that helped us during this financial crisis, which has been also a very, it was also a big social crisis for us, but tourism was there to support our efforts to go on and actually to increase the capacity of our potential, and actually to have these results. What we did is, in our strategy, and it's a priority of the government because otherwise it would have not been that successful, with the very hard work that we did in the ministry with all the people and all the private sector with us, and also the other ministries. Ministry of Culture was the first, one of the first. We had good cooperation, and also the Ministry of Environment, and of course the Ministry of Economy and Development that supported the funds to achieve those results, is to have Greece as a 365-day global tourism destination. And this has been achieved, and this is going to get better and better the coming years, to offer memorable, authentic experiences to visitors. And also, all these cannot happen and cannot be achieved in a sustainable way if we cannot follow the sustainable development model, tourism development. And when we talk about sustainability, we talk about economic sustainability, environmental in terms of environment, and of course in terms of social involvement and sustainability in terms of three main aspects. The strategic pillars of our strategy that we had to follow, we designed and we implemented is, of course, when we talk about 365 days of tourism throughout the year, it means that we need to extend the tourist season, the classical tourism season, to promote new thematic tourism products, special interest tourism products, to try to bring people from abroad, which means to open source markets from countries that have not been very active and very successful the years before, introduce new destinations in the country, within the country, upgrade quality, attract investments, and create synergies with other sectors of the economy so as to have value added and to have value change throughout the economy. In terms of the extension of the tourism season, what we did is that the traditional season, as you know, it starts from, let's say, it used to start from late March or beginning of April until October. What we have managed to do, and this is because we have flights, we have more charters. Now we start very early in March, and what we do is we end, if I can use the word end, because when we talk about all year round tourism, we never end to have tourists in Greece, is late November, and what we manage to do is promote the special interest tourism, forms of tourism, and of course winter tourism, so as to have those 365 days, weather permitting, and our climate is of course a good advantage and a strong potential, because people, different age groups would come and enjoy the weather, enjoy the hospitality, enjoy all these new products that we offer for the tourists throughout the year. The new products, first of it, as you see, and it's of course it's very important for us, it's very important for tourism. I would say that tourism and culture and tourism go together, because the product culture, as I said, it's not only the antiquities, or it's not only the ancient sites or the museums, but it's all the history, it's the people, it's what it's not tangible maybe, but what it's all over Greece, and what the people would bring to the scene to enjoy. So it's we have new products. We try to enhance the connectivity with culture, in all forms of culture, as I said before, and for us it's an opportunity to learn from projects, as this is the project that you, with great success, that you implemented, and you are going to again establish a new round, as you said, for the project. And we have agrotourism, nature-based tourism, we have sea tourism, not only the sea and sun and on the beach, but also with sports, diving, with all these activities that would be related to sea. Sports and recreation, which means athletic tourism, sports tourism, big events, organizing big events, and have actually not professional tourism athletes, but also people that would come and enjoy and run in the marathon, participate in other events, participate throughout Greece in all such kind of sports activities, and enjoy, and at the same time would be potential tourists, and will, so as the tourism for us would benefit from all these activities. And of course it's religious, it's pilgrimage tourism, again it's culture, because the churches, the Byzantine monasteries, all these treasures that we have from the religious side, it's very important, goes together with culture, and tourism benefits from all this. We have new markets like India, China, Israel. We have good cooperation with markets like Egypt, Russia, that has been before also, and United States. Again, we try to enhance the markets from there, but especially from China and India and the Middle East. We open those markets by participating. The GNTO, the Greek National Tourism Organization, participates in all global events in those countries, international travel shows, exhibitions. So Greece is everywhere. Greece is everywhere, not only to participate and exhibit, but it's also be there because for us Greek people, we are all proud that everybody around the world knows about Greece. And if they don't know, we are there to let them know and to come to visit our country. Also, we have new destinations, which is something very important for the tourists, because you know that when you have now 30 million tourists, and this year probably there will be 32 and probably 33 million, which I said it was 3 years ago, it was like 25 million tourists, which is rather surprising. Not surprising because we know the work that we've done, but it's always expanding. So we need to offer to these tourists new destinations, and we have promoted new destinations. Everybody knows Santorini and Mykonos and Crete and Rhodos and Athens, of course. But there are emerging destinations. It's Peloponnese, Messenia. We have new airports. Fraport will implement a development plan for 14 regional airports to upgrade and modernize those airports. We have new roads and new highways that connect all the places in Greece and all the big cities, all the sites in the mainland. So we introduce less popular destinations that will offer authentic experiences with high quality services and infrastructure, which is very important, so as to develop high quality tourism and a high quality of the services offered. And this, I said as an example, the case of Peloponnese, which is the airport of Kalamata used to have only 15,000 tourists 3 years ago. Now they have 115,000 tourists, which is an exceptional number. And of course, the private sector helped that. We have Costa Navarino there. With Costa Navarino, which is a jewel, it's an example for Greece. Many other such kind of big infrastructure projects, golf resorts, high quality infrastructure projects, accommodation. They involve the local communities. You know what they do in Costa Navarino? They invite and offer free, of course, for the local people that they are employed in the restaurants, offer them cuisine and culinary lesson and training, so as to offer those services in their taverns and their restaurants throughout the local communities, which is very beneficial also for the local communities. And of course for arts, for handicrafts, for the local products. Regarding the new investments, the last 3 years we had more than 300 projects, 25,000 new beds in 4- and 5-star hotels, which is very important because it means that everybody understands that tourism is the sector that we has provided and will provide opportunities for development and for investments. And all these projects and all these different projects will focus on a variety and a mixture of themes like astronomy, culture, nature, and wellness. It has been a great effort from the ministry and the private sector to upgrade the spas and the thermal springs that we have in Greece. Also to different segments like millennials, elderly, couples, people from the north that will come and have some rehabilitation like medical tourism, MICE, congresses, and all these events that will be organized and could be organized and are still organized, but they will be more and more interest in the future of such events to get organized, and of course to focus on high-end tourism, which means people that will spend more. But to spend more we need to have a strategy in addressing those people from all these countries, and not only to have that mass tourism that we used to have since the last before and the last 3 years, but now we have expanded the clientele, and this is a great success for tourism. And finally, we create synergies. It is very important to create, because tourism, of course, is synergetic to culture and arts. We create synergies with culture. We have the synergies with culture in terms of local entrepreneurship, in terms of, as I say, arts and crafts, in terms of local authentic products, which would be either food or produce from the local communities, but also for food, agriculture, agro-food and manufacturing. We have established and we have created a forum for agro-food tourism and the local communities, which actually means that the local producers produce their food, like tomato juice or marmalade or honey. They do some kind of manufacturing locally, and then the consumers will be the tourists in the hotels, which, of course, the hotel, it will cost them a little more, but the value chain and the added value that we have at the end, because then the tourists will buy, will taste, will buy, will bring back to their countries, and will be the great ambassadors to when they go back to their countries. And of course we have sports, as I said before, sports tourism. Let me give you, before I end, our forecast for 2018 and on. I said that we had 32 million. The figures show that we have more than 32 million, almost 33 million international arrivals in our country this year, which means 5% contribution to the GDP, 5% in tourism, this is the direct contribution to GDP, because the indirect, having all the sectors, it's more than 20%. An increase in tourism investments and also an increase in employment, which is very, very essential for us now that we are fighting the unemployment rate, we are fighting unemployment. Tourism is one of the paths that, especially young people and young entrepreneurs, and we have programs that are funded by the European Commission for the upgrade of businesses, for the startup of new businesses, for new startups, for young people and young entrepreneurs that would enter in the tourism sector now and in the coming years. So this is, I was told Okay. So I didn't put the slide. Thank you for your attention, because those people that didn't want to attend, they wouldn't attend. I mean, anyway. So just it's good to give our vision, and our vision for Greece, for Greek people, it's to be a worldwide top 10 tourism destination. We are already be in the 5 top destinations in Europe. We are trying, and will soon be one of the 10 best top 10 destinations for tourism, and this is because we engage all the advantages that we have as a country, as people, which is culture, history, which is natural beauty, which is Greek hospitality and authenticity. And for this we are proud, and for this we are proud that we are Greeks, and we are all Greeks, of course, with the people in Cyprus. And now, as I said, that we are starting a new cooperation, the two ministries, your ministry to become and our ministry. I'm sure that we will find ways to cooperate and increase the links between tourism in Cyprus and Greece, to go together abroad. Already we are cooperating in some indirect projects with Cyprus, and I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be helping you in your project in any kind of way that you might think, and I wish you a great success, and soon we will be able again to even to cooperate and start making a project together. Thank you very much.
So the next speaker is Professor Zayed Al-Saad. Thank you. Zayed Al-Saad. Okay, thank you. Vice President, Yarmouk University from Jordan. And we're very, very happy that you could make it, given the short notice that we were.
Thank you very much.
And we're very, very happy to listen to what you have to present.
Yes. Say good afternoon, everybody. I'm really very delighted and honored to be here today, speaking to this distinguished audience. I would like, first of all, to thank the organizers of this symposium, particularly my classmate and friend, Lina Casiendo. I'm really so delighted and happy that, Lina, we could meet again after all these long years. We studied together at UCL, and since then we haven't met. So I'm very pleased that we have this opportunity. In my presentation, I will just demonstrate to you that we have not just a shared cultural heritage and a shared history, but listening to the presentation this morning, and particularly the speeches, I noticed that we have common challenges and problems as well. And in this presentation, which I developed during my participation in another European project, Archaeology Sites, I was a partner in that project. We did like a situation analysis of Jordan's cultural heritage sector in terms of policies, management, problems that we face, particularly the conservation and management problem of the very rich and diverse Jordan's cultural heritage. I will just give a very brief introduction about Jordan's cultural heritage. And you know that Jordan is really has a very diverse legacy of antiquities. Maybe it has the most or the highest concentration of cultural monuments in the world, taking in consideration the limited area of the country. And Jordan legacy represent the origin and evolution of several religions, cultures, economies, and societies, as Jordan was really the crossroad of different civilizations met there and interacted there. Now, Jordan is being called as the open air museum because of that very high dense and concentration of archaeological sites. Wherever you go in the country, you find archaeological sites. Wherever you dig, you find archaeological site. And this represents an opportunity for the country. It also represents a great challenge in terms of preservation and conservation of this heritage. I'll just give you highlights of some of the most important archaeological features of Jordan. The oldest plaster statues found in Jordan, and this really a very important milestone in the human history. The production of the first man-made material, the plaster. So the first chemical reaction happened in Jordan when they convert limestone into lime plaster. And that was really a chemical reaction. And the first chemical reaction happened in Ain Ghazal near Amman. And probably, Lina, you remember that these statues were conserved at the Institute and the British Museum 20 years ago. And also we think that the first industrial revolution happened in Jordan. We have in Finan evidence that the first copper smelting happened 4,400 years before Christ, 4,400 BC. So we have evidence of a real copper smelting. And although I know that Cyprus' name is derived from copper, and we have a shared history of the development of copper smelting, which is really a real revolution in the human history. There are different theories, to attribute the real origin of copper smelting, but we have now evidence that Jordan was at least one of the places of the earliest copper smelting trials. And also we have the unique rock-cut city of Petra, the Nabateans of Jordan, the amazing culture of the whole city cut in stone. And this is a kind invitation for everybody to come and visit this unique and amazing site. It's one of the 7 wonders of the world. And I have worked with my colleague, maybe Fadi, we have a shared interest working for the conservation of this huge site. We have hundreds of monuments, and it's really a big challenge for the country to maintain and protect this site. The Decapolis, this is again these very famous Greek-Roman cities, the League of 10 cities, 7 of them were in Jordan. The Jarash, you mentioned this morning, Lena, you mentioned Jarash, but we have also the Gadara, Jarasa, Pella, Arabella, and all these cities have really great monumental remains, still witness for the greatness of this culture. And we still believe that only 20% of the archaeology of these sites have been unearthed, and so many still really underground and need to be excavated and dealt with. And also Jordan is very well connected with Christianity, with now the baptism site and Mount Nebo, and probably you all know the connection between these sites and the development of religions in human history. Well, this rich and diverse cultural heritage, as I mentioned, represent really a great opportunity for Jordan, for sustainable development, for economic opportunities, for tourism, but also it represents a great challenge for the country, as this cultural heritage is under the imminent threat of destruction due to a combination of human and natural factors. And in our situation analysis, we really found that we have a problem of awareness on either the government or the general public of the importance and significance of cultural heritage. People sometimes, they are ignorant, they don't understand, and not just the people, even the government, people who are really in high-ranking positions in the government, and sometimes even in the Ministry of Tourism, which is the ministry responsible for the cultural heritage of Jordan. We unfortunately found that there is a lack of proper strategies and policies for the management and safeguarding of cultural heritage. We have a poor legislations. We have a problem in that regard. I will explain later a little bit more. Limited financial and human resources. Cultural heritage is not a priority for our government. It is, when it comes to the government budget, and I was Director General of Antiquities of Jordan, I suffered heavily when I go to the parliament for the budget discussions. They just give me salaries, enough financial resources to cover salaries and wages, and a little bit of money that you can do almost nothing with it, taking in consideration the huge tasks that you have in hand. So the three major impediments that really hindered the development and safeguarding of Jordan's cultural heritage was really the poor, vague, and confusing legislations. We have 3 effective laws: Antiquity Law of Jordan, Tourism Law, and Law for the Protection of Urban and Architectural Heritage. These legislations, vague, confusing, and has resulted in an unclear division of roles between heritage responsible authorities. We have really a big problem in that regard, as we have the DOO, the Department of Antiquities, the Ministry, and we have another authority created for Petra, in particular for Petra Development Authority, and there is really some overlapping, big overlapping in terms of responsibilities and authorities between these 3 parties. There is a lack of a clear standards and guidelines for the conservation management of cultural heritage. So cultural heritage conservation is done like, without a proper guidelines and referencing. People, they use wrong materials sometimes, like Portland cement is being heavily used in stone monuments, and not effective, really, preventive conservation policies and measures have been applied. We have an excessive excavations of sites. Thousands of archaeological sites have been excavated by foreign expeditions and by local archaeologists. And archaeologists, they just move from one site to another, doing more excavations for new discoveries. But what they left behind is really open sites for damage and destruction. So, I'm not blaming archaeology in particular, because that's the long standing problem between archaeology and conservation. We like to see more archaeological excavations in the country, but first of all, we have to regulate these excavations, and we have also to put in place what's needed in terms of conservation and protection of these sites before we move to another excavations. DOA, the Department of Antiquity of Jordan, is mandated for management for everything related to archaeology in the country. But there is a lack of a clarity in terms of responsibilities and authority, especially between the ministry and the department. The department is under the umbrella of the ministry, and I personally suffered, working with 5 ministers in 1 year. There have been 1.5 years, 5 ministers of tourism changed, and everyone comes with his, ideas and perspective for the sector. And most of these ideas and perspectives has nothing to do with cultural heritage and with archaeology. They all come from tourism background, but they don't understand really the particularity of archaeology and the need of, or how to utilize archaeology for the benefit of tourism, which really we support very much, but they don't really understand what it requires to use archaeology for tourism development. So we always have this problem, this overlapping and sometimes conflicting decisions lead to a loss of opportunities and lead really to some disastrous situations. So this split situation could lead to inefficient redundancy, fragmented expertise, and competences and heritage knowledge within these organizations. So there is a lack of defined modalities for cooperation and interaction between these organizations on issues of cultural heritage management. Some of that have been highlighted in Professor Vessa's speech this morning. I hope I have his courage to speak straightforward and convey the messages as he did this morning. He mentioned to me that I need the power of age to do this. And and I hope with the time I will be able to convey the messages. The problem, the second really problem that we face is the lack of human and financial resources of Department of Antiquity. It is underfunded, understaffed, and most of the staff of the department are not specialized in archaeology or related disciplines. There's a shortage of funding, and the government are not convinced that investing in cultural heritage is a priority. Also, they're talking about tourism as the major contributor of our economy, and they brag about this. but they don't want to invest in cultural heritage sector or in the conservation or representation of cultural heritage sites. Conservation efforts are limited, taking in consideration the scale of what's needed. Petra alone would like 220 monuments, big, huge monuments. If you take one of them, you need, years, and you need a lot of interdisciplinary teams to come together to work in the conservation and protection of these sites. Presentation and interpretation of heritage sites are really almost non-existent or very poor. We recently established a program for cultural heritage management at Yarmouk University, maybe Hashemite University, or doing some training in that regard. Now, we feel that archaeological sites, they don't speak for themselves. You need to make an effective interpretation first, and then a proper representation to make them attractive for tourists and visitors. We try to put like a roadmap for the country. This is just very brief here, but in my report, I put really a very detailed future plan for cultural heritage sector of Jordan. So the poor management can only be achieved if the tasks are clearly assigned to qualified specialists in the management of cultural heritage. So we need, first of all, to give opportunity for these university graduates. We have like 5 universities who teach cultural heritage, archaeology, conservation, and cultural heritage management. But most of the graduates are really employed in a different fields, totally different fields. They are not given opportunity to work in the Department of Antiquity or the Ministry of Tourism. We think that what urgently we need is a legislation changes, institutional restructuring, and capacity building of the DOA. I think we have started with some pressure from universities. They have started this legislation amendment to remove gaps, overlaps, and ambiguity in the law. For example, we have a problem of illicit trafficking of cultural heritage, of archaeological materials, and the law doesn't help really. The law is quite vague about this, which really allow this black market to flourish. So we have really this illicit trade and illicit excavation, and the smuggling of antiquities is a big problem that deprives the country from a significant part of its legacy. We try to define the responsibilities between the different institutions. We have tried hard. I have tried hard when I was Director General to ask the Ministry of Tourism to do what they should do. You know, I found a bizarre situation. In my first days at the Department of Antiquities, I found my staff of the department selling tickets for tourists, and I found the staff from the Ministry of Tourism doing conservation of sites. It's really quite amazing what's happening. So we tried again to define roles and responsibility according to knowledge and according to professional experience. So the DOA, Department of Antiquities, should do really the survey, site identification, excavation, recording, documentation, site interpretation, and conservation of archaeological sites. And the ministry can take that product almost ready for site development and site presentation to be used as a touristic product. So these defined roles are very important for the future, hopefully. And we think that we need like a national governing body in order to unite the vision and, make the people work together instead of this antagonism that we heard this morning. It's here, it's again in Jordan. We don't have really the right mechanism to work together in harmony toward the benefit of the society. We compete, different institutions. There is a problem, for example, of communication between universities and the Department of Antiquities. They think that Department of Antiquities are so sensitive, for example, for any initiative coming from a university. They think they have the mandate, they have the responsibility, they are the government. Nobody else is allowed to deal with archaeology except them. So this national governance body is really being considered now by the legislators, by the parliament. And I don't know if it will come to existence at any time. So very briefly, the intended outcome of this really policy document is the sustainability of resources. We want to strike this delicate balance between protection of cultural heritage sites, protection of archaeology should come first, but at the same time utilizing this cultural heritage for the benefit of the society. We want to compete at the international level. I think we have the assets, we have the legacy, the diversity of heritage to be an international competitor. We want to have the community involved more. Now there is a problem of local community involvement and participation in really cultural heritage or in decisions related to their cultural heritage. And that created really a lot of problems and separation between the people and the sites. And we would like to develop an effective partnership between the different institutions and the local community for the benefit of everybody. We think we are on the right track. We have discussed these ideas with the ministers and members of parliament and some committees of the parliament who are really responsible for the tourism sector. We think in the coming days we'll have some positive development. I hope so. Questions will be at the end. Thank you very much.
The last presentation before lunch is by Dr. Fadi Balawi, correct? Kind of? Yes, okay, good, right? And he's the Dean of Queen Rania Faculty of Tourism and Heritage from the Hashemite University from Jordan. Thank you very, very much for being here, and it's a pleasure to listen to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I know all of you now is very tired, and you are looking for lunch, which is delayed half an hour, not because of me, because of the schedule. So I will try to be as short as I can. And when you had enough of me, just tell me to stop. Dr. Ziad make it an easy for me because from his presentation, and he just gave a summary of what we have in Jordan. But in Queen Rania Faculty of Tourism and Heritage at the Hashemite University, we recognize this problem between tourism and antiquities before we start. So we started our faculty based on this problem. So the Faculty of Tourism and Heritage at Queen Rania has been established in 1999, and we have a very important role that we really would like to take a significant role in qualifying distinguished human resources in the field of tourism, conservation, and cultural resources management at the same faculty. Because usually these graduates, they come from different institutions and they have different approaches to the heritage and cultural heritage sites. So we have a very difficult mission that we really would like to make these three combination between conservation, cultural resource management, and tourism management in one faculty. So we would like these three departments or three sub-departments to give us a very clear vision of how the conservation, how the cultural resource management should be led in Jordan. So we have three departments, started with the conservation department because our faculty was established mainly as a research center funded by the World Bank in conservation issue. What we really have in our mind in the faculty, we have five goals that we really would like to have qualified staff in the three mentioned topics, that we have a very highly qualified graduate student in conservation, science, in cultural resource management, and in museology. And we are the only university in the Middle East that we teach museology in a bachelor degree. And also we have another goals to help the Department of Antiquities and the people who is running the cultural resources and heritage sites in Jordan by conducting surveys. And I will show you in a minute what kind of achievement we have done in conducting surveys and doing an archaeological excavation by our staff and our students. We also aimed and we have success in establishing a very strong and comprehensive database related to all researchers in conservation sciences, in cultural resource management, and in tourism management within Jordan, not only linked with the Hashemite University only. We're really working hardly now in establishing two natural and archaeological museums within the governor of Zarqa. And we already started now establishing an educational archaeological museum within the university. Saying that, I just would like to tell you that Hashemite University is one of the most popular public university in Jordan, and I will give you just a few remarks about the Hashemite University. The Hashemite University is the only university in the world that we self-dependent. We don't take any grant or fund or from government or from international bodies. We are self-dependent university. We are the only university in Jordan that we have no debt. We are the only university in Jordan that have accreditation international accreditation in most all of the faculties. So that's why they believe in cultural heritage, because they look at the role of the university as part of the national agenda, and now cultural heritage is one of the main things that Hashemite University is focusing on them. I will start with a very early image with the Queen Rania that was in 2004, and she was joining us in a first trip to the borders between Jordan and Saudi Arabia, talking to tourists coming from Saudi Arabia about how we would like them to see the interaction between tourism, conservation, and cultural resources management. We have quite good staff at the faculty. We have around 20 professors, and we really have a very important laboratory infrastructure. We have 5 already existing labs and 2 are coming soon. We have a conservation science lab, we have archaeological information system lab, we have remote sensing lab, and we have archaeological excavation lab photographic and photogrammetry lab, and archaeological survey lab. And now we're having another 2 labs, one of them for travel and tourism booking systems, and another one for research, new research and technology in archaeology. What we have achieved in Queen Rania Faculty of Tourism as a national level for an excavation and helping how we manage the cultural heritage sites in Jordan. One of the main sites Dr. Ziad just mentioned is the baptism site in Jordan, and the baptism site in Jordan was excavated by one of our staff, my colleague Dr. Muhammad Wahib, with under the umbrella of the Department of Antiquities, and this is why our student now is still working in conservation plan, management plan in the site, because we have a huge amount of data during the survey that one of our colleagues have done during the excavation site of the city. Also, we excavated a very huge Iron Age settlement in the area of the Hashemite University called Kharbet Junaina, and we can see how we get lucky at the Hashemite University, because we have the president of the university in this image. He is the first one in the left side, who is following us on a daily basis what we are doing and what achieving at the site. Also, with the collaboration with University of Rome, we have excavated an early Bronze Age settlement in the Zarqa area, which is Batrawi excavation site, and we have done that through our staff and our student for almost 5 years, and we have a great result and very clear Bronze Age settlement, which could be used for tourism activities later. The Cave of Seven Sleepers, which have been excavated and by some of Hashemite University staff, and now we are working in a conservation and management plan for the site in a comprehensive project between the Hashemite University and the Department of Antiquity. We also have a very important role in training and local community engagement. We believe that one of the main problems that there is lack of training even for professional people, and there's no engagement of local community, and even there is a local engagement, it's mainly a paperwork engagement, and what we believe in a real world engagement of local community. We have each course that we teach at the Hashemite University, mostly like 90% of our courses, they have 3 credit hours of field work every week, where we take our student to sites, and luckily in Jordan we have over 100,000 archaeological sites. 10 of them are well documented and well studied. And when I'm saying site, just I mentioned Petra. Within one site, we have 3,400 monuments. So if we take our student on a daily basis to Petra, they will finish their studies before finishing seeing the whole monuments. Also, we have a special training courses to the people who are working in archaeology. Here, some images from students in our university and some of the Department of Antiquities employee in one of the desert castles in Jordan, where we show them how documentation strategies and documentation technology could be used in archaeological sites. Here we were training local community in using different technical analytical techniques in Petra, and we are proud that 10 of the local community in Petra now are highly qualified in doing some kind of field work, experimental work. Also, we believe in training other institutions. So we trained some of the museum employees in Jordan in conservation and conservation of different kind objects. We also take our role one step further, where we have a faculty open day. And this faculty open day every year have a different theme. And last year theme was just to educate our student in the same university about the role of cultural heritage and how they can be part of preserving and managing the Jordanian cultural heritage. Also, we take an innovation, and you take a very special role in real work in conservation and management of archaeological sites. Here, 150 students from our university practicing in cleaning and documentation of one of the main archaeological sites in Azarqa area, which is Qasr Shabib. And if you can see that we create by this project not only the documentation and the cleaning, but there was a revolution in the neighborhood area about what these people are doing, why they are doing that, and now we create awareness in a different way and in a very clear way. We have a monthly lecture to all the students in the university, not only to our students, to engage them with our activities. And we have many students now and from other faculties who are joining us in our excavation, our conservation work, because they believe and they loved what we are doing. Also, we have every year what we call it Tourism Week, but actually it's a different idea from that. We just having a tourism week. It's just only to produce the combination of the result of our publication, our work, our excavation, in cooperation with the Ministry of Tourism and the Department of Antiquity, so we can have a comprehensive picture of what we are doing at the Hashemite University. We also believe in international and national research project as a main goal of our institution. So we have done quite a very useful project, and we believe in a practical project that could give a real benefit to our heritage sites. This project has been done in cooperation with Belfast University, where we did what we call it rapid line condition assessment of rock cut tombs in Petra. When I said we have 3,400 monuments in Petra, and we need to put a priority list, and we need to see where we can start, you cannot do a normal or traditional evaluation of the sites, because you have a huge number of monuments, 3,400 monuments. So you need to think differently how you can find a rapid-based assessment methodology. This is what we've done. It was very successful result, because we have done 17 sites. We evaluate 17 sites. Minimum size of any one of them is 50 meter by 20 meter. We have done these 17 sites evaluation and in 4 days. And this is a very detailed project that has been based on a cancer research. We took it and we see how cancer research, they evaluate their cases, and we link it to heritage, and it was really giving us, but just I want to mention that we take in consideration a very important factors that could help us, because not only the status of the monument that we really took in consideration, but the accessibility, the decoration, the size of the monument. So we took a lot of factors, and we could come now in the 3,400 monument with a very short priority list that needed interaction directly in the site. Also, we are proud to be part of Narnia project that we have done led by the University of Cyprus. It was a great experience to the Hashemite University to be part of that important international project, and we gained a lot, and we aim to build a new cooperation with such a great university like the University of Cyprus. We also have produced, like the last year, we produced in the university or the faculty 22 paper, all of it published in international highly ranked journal, with a collaboration with other colleagues from outside the Hashemite University. We have done a very important national level a project like this one, what we call it archaeological site under risk the case of Jordan, and we have take Petra as one of our main case studies. We have documented a lot of unknown touristic sites in Jordan, like the cave and the road of Wadi or Iraq al-Amir. We have done an epigraphic studies at the more than 4 projects running right now in epigraphy in the northern eastern Jordan Badia. We have done also in another level in a tourism reference research have been done by EU mission in Jordan. We also have done a very important and new track of projects, which is documentation for conservation. We really invented this kind of methodology that we could use the 3D and highly tech documentation technology for conservation purposes. And you can see this is images from one of the iconic structure in Jordan, how we can use it. We did what we call it extracting the problem from the 3D model, and it's really orthopedic pictures, which is really very useful for conservation. We want to what it looked like a very stable sites, and we will have a great look in it, and we have 3D models and conservation evaluation of these monuments. Like this is what we call it, the Umayyad Palace in the desert castle, and we really have a very important other kind of research regarding artifacts, regarding documentation of other monuments in Jordan, regarding thermodynamic approaches in many places in Petra. We also believe in the role of international and national conferences and workshops. So we have been working through the last 3 years with many highly institutions. With Oxford University, we organized a very huge conference what's called Protecting the Past in collaboration with the Oxford University. I'm very proud that 20 of my students will have the experience to be part of this workshop, which is run for 5 days in the Jordan Museum. And also we we have an annual conference at the Hashimite University, which is called Tourism Management and Heritage Conservation. And the last one, we have 81 participants from 17 countries in this conference. And we really enjoy it because 150 students have the experience to get it, because this conference is 5 days conference. 3 of them is lecture and presentation, and 2 of them is field-on training, which is a great opportunity to students to get part of that training. And also during Narnia, we were grateful that we could have the chance to give a training during Narnia, a project to Narnia participants, and also a huge number of our students. And this is during their visit to one of the main archaeological sites, and their training in how to use a 3D laser scanner and how they can use their mobile for a 3D laser scanner. We don't need any more fancy 3D laser scanner. We could use your mobile with a very cheap software, or almost now a free on internet. You could produce a highly good result. Also, I'm quite done. Also, we believe that we have a bigger role with the people who are working in the tourism industry. So we arrange a 2-day workshop with the tourism police in Jordan. We have in Jordan a sector in what we call tourism police, which is they are responsible for protecting and helping tourists in archaeological sites. And we have done a very detailed and focused training for them, how they can use the archaeological information and knowledge in their work, and it was a very successful experience with the tourism police department. Also, we have done with UCL during Tilo's Rehin period in UCL a very important workshop It was titled in the conservation work in Jordan, what has been done and what is being needed. And it was a great chance to exchange ideas between the UCL in Qatar staff and the Jordanian staff about the conservation work and what could be done. Also, we are engaged with international organization in Jordan, like the American Center for Oriental Research, through a very special project, what we call CHEPA project, with the Sustainable Cultural Heritage through engagement of local community. We are part of the training schedule for this program, and we are involved in most of their work in Jordan. Also, we believe in giving the local community who have a very minor knowledge about what we are doing. We organized a Tourism International Day conference, which was a very unscientific conference, just simple presentation about what we do, what's our plan, and how we can attract people attention. Finally, just give you 3 or 4 examples of what we are willing to do within the coming 2 to 3 years. We are aiming to restore 3 Islamic mosques near the Hashemite University and transfer them to museums, because these mosques are now left with no authority responsible for them, and their situation is really bad. So we have get the agreement to start our workshop in these 3 mosques and transfer them to museums under the management of Hashemite University. We have a collection from our excavation that we could display within these mosques, and we have the light to do so. And also now we are starting a project with the governor of Zarqa to develop one of their halls, what we call it Hashemite Hall. It's a hall that have a collection of traditional artifacts, traditional material that the governor have, and now we are developing this hall for them to be a highly well recognized and international standard simple museum in the area. And we are now running a huge project in establishing, as I told you before, an educational archaeological museum within the university, with the collaboration with the DOA and the Jordan Museum. And finally, just 10 days ago, we signed an agreement to establish what we call it educational hotel in the faculty, in the university, in collaboration with the Hotel Association in Jordan. We believe that we have a huge task to do, but we really start doing what we can do, and we hope that we can do much more in the near future. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Lunch is being served outside. We'll be announcing the continuation of the event as soon as we see that people are done with their lunch. All right, so